Hi, Andy XL back again. 27th of August now, getting close to the start of the season. And this will be the fifth of my looks at each of the NFL divisions ahead of this season to look at how the division could pan out. And this one is going to concentrate on the NFC West, which is probably going to be the most competitive and tightly contested division in the league this season. All four teams in this division have won it within the last 10 years. The Rams four times, the 49ers three times, the Seahawks have got a couple of wins, and the Cardinals just once 10 years ago. With last to first being separated by 4 wins last season, as I say, this has the look of a very competitive division. But questions surround all four of these teams. Is the Rams' window of opportunity closing? Can the 49ers bounce back from their poor season last year? Will the Seahawks find a way to the top? Or can the Cardinals build on what was a above expectation season last season? So let's start with the Rams. Free agent wise, they've re signed Alaric Jackson at offensive tackle. Christian Rosebroom has gone to Carolina from inside linebacker. They've re-signed Troy Reader at that position, though. They've lost defensive tackle Bobby Brown to Carolina. Demarcus Robinson has gone to San Francisco at wide receiver, but they have re-signed, I should say, cornerback Akilo Weatherspoon. And the Rams finished strong to take this division last year. But it has to be said, Matt Stafford is aging, and with Cooper Cup leaving, there is a bit of a look about this team that it's a franchise trying to manage its way through a rebuild, but stay in contention at the same time. They've done a lot of work on the defensive side, transition wise, and have a lot of quality young talent on that side of the ball. But some youth needed to be addressed on the offensive side at some point in this draft, though only Terence Ferguson at tight end is an addition of note for 2025. So still work to do there in terms of that transition. They've brought Devontae Adams in to replace Cooper Cup as a big name addition. Poona Ford has come in to fill the void left by Bobby Brown at defensive tackle, with Nate Landman also coming in to replace Christian Roseboom. Whether Landman is enough to fill the need inside linebacker has to be questioned, though. So, wide receiver, offensive tackle, and cornerback were not addressed in this draft, so all remain as potential weaknesses, certainly depth wise. I overall see the Rams getting 9 to 10 wins. 10 is what they achieved in 2024. And as such, they certainly have a shot to retain their divisional title. And if they do get into that position come sort of trade deadline wise, they might make a move or two to try and bolster their postseason chances. So next up, the Seattle Seahawks. Um, they had one of the best wide receiver trios in the league, and Geno Smith had a big stats year as a result last season. But he also threw too many picks. And I've always felt Smith is one of those NFL quarterbacks who's on the margin between being a decent starting quarterback and a top end backup. Um, so not surprised that they've moved on from him and replaced him with Sam Darnold. They've also lost two of that wide receiver trio in DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, replacing them with Cooper Cup and Marquez Valdez Scantling, which looks like a downgrade on both of those for me from last season. Elsewhere, in terms of free agents, Ernest James was re-signed at linebacker, as was Jaron Reed at defensive tackle, and Jonathan Hankins too in that position. But they lost Laken Tomlinson at guard to Houston via free agency. So with the offense potentially looking weaker um, overall, but it was the O line that really needed looking at. They've got Gray Zabel, which could be a good draft pick, but how much he makes a difference straight away, that remains to be seen. And the answer to how good this O line is going to be fundamental to how the season pans out for the Seahawks. With a less potent pass game, they need a big year from Kenneth Walker at running back. And that puts even more focus on that O line to work for him too. So really, that O line, as I say, that's going to decide how the Seahawks go. And overall, like I said, looking at how the off season has panned out for them, I just don't see the Seahawks being as strong as they were last season. And as such, I think they're the least likely of the four teams to win this division and make the postseason. Indeed, like I say, I have them favourites to finish bottom of this division in 2025. Next up, the Arizona Cardinals. Free agent wise, they've re-signed Baron Browning. Um, haven't got Dennis Gardeck back or Will Hernandez at guard. Um, so, there's a couple of things already that we're starting to see losses there. Um, so, of Evan Brown, they have re-signed at guard though. Roy Lopez, the defensive tackle, went to Detroit. Um, Kaiser White's gone from inside linebacker, and they've re-signed offensive tackle Kelvin Beachum. So, as I say, for me, the Cardinals overachieved a bit last season. They were mid-ranked on both offense and defense, so in the league, but their strength area was their ground offense behind a strong O line. Apart from Will Hernandez, they have kept their O line depth together, and that could be the foundation for another decent season in 2025. They lacked a dominant edge rusher or two on defense and needed to look to revamp that part of their roster this close season. Um, they also needed to look at the strengthen their D line on the interior too, having lost Roy Lopez, and also at inside linebacker with Kaiser White having not been re-signed. Although they did add Akeem Davis Gaither via free agency, so some areas of concern there for the Cardinals. Sorry, the screen's not doing what it's supposed to do here, so just bear with me a second while I get back on track. Right, we're back. So, areas of concern, as I've said, they also had loads of cap space those to use in free agency, and Josh Sweat and Calais Campbell were two additions they spent some of that money on to address the edge needs, whilst Dalvin Tomlinson is another to replace Lopez at defensive tackle. So good moves there, but they have a strong secondary, which now has Will Johnson added to it and a pretty decent running back room too. Trey McBride is an excellent tight end, and they will hope Marvin Harrison can improve on a fairly good rookie season and really come to the fore this season. Draft-wise, they had picks 16, 47 and 78 as their picks in the opening 2 days of the 2025 draft to address their needs, which saw them add another pass rusher, Walter Nolan, and inside linebacker Cody Simon. Defensive tackle and wide receivers were areas they did not look at, though. So, my biggest concern, though, overall, outside of defensive tackle and wide receiver, which I've already mentioned, and this may be a bit controversial, but it's just my feeling, is about quarterback Kyler Murray. No quarterback can do it all on their own, and the Cardinals have built a pretty solid roster all round with one or two areas, like I say. But if you look at Murray's overall piece of work in the NFL, he's only led the Cardinals to one winning season in his 6-year tenure. And he's a quarterback who needs a ton of time to find receivers, putting an extra onus on the O line to provide elite level protection. I just don't see Murray as that elite quarterback that others may see him as. To me, he's a barely above average NFL starting quarterback who needs a strong O line and defense to be the difference maker. He's constant failed to be. Now, when I make those comments, that's him as a passer. Yeah, he can still do a bit on the ground, but as he gets older, a bit Russell Wilson's like, that's not going to be quite so much the case. So I need to see him step up as that passer and really show that he can produce at top level. They've made some good moves this off-season and they may get to 8 or 9 wins again. But the Cardinals really need Murray to play more like the first overall pick he was to make a challenge in this division and or make the postseason. So that's how I see it for the Cardinals. Um, definitely got a shot. San Francisco 49ers finished bottom of the division last year. Free agent wise, Shavarius Ward's gone to Indianapolis from cornerback. Inside linebacker Dre Greenlaw is now in Denver, as is safety Talanoa Hufanga. Guard Aaron Banks has gone to Green Bay, and defensive tackle Javon Hargrave is now in Minnesota. So some chunky departures there. And on top of that, the 49ers had an injury-blighted 2024. But despite an endless casualty list, still managed to get to 6 wins, which wasn't a great score, but when you think of the problems they had, maybe it wasn't so bad. All four of the opening free agents mentioned above were among those that missed significant time. So Ward, Greenlaw, Hafanga, Banks, they all missed time. Um, so, there's some issues there. Um, add to that Christian McCarthy and Brandon Ayuk playing 11 games between them, plus others, and the 49ers really had no chance of success last time. Injuries killed them. But what it did do is possibly expose the limitations of Brock Purdy at quarterback. Now, he's got the big contract. He's given the significant pay rise. Now he needs to show that he's really is a top level NFL quarterback and not just a Mr. Irrelevant who's vastly overperformed. They've got great service out of him for little money. Now they're paying him money. They need to see the return. Like the Rams, they've called a time on a veteran wide receiver, letting Deebo Samuel go. They may see Ricky Pearsall as his successor, and I could have a lot of time for that. And with the emergence of Juwan Jennings, they could well have enough at wide receiver once Brandon Ayuk is back on the field. But that's looking more mid-season at this point than certainly. They might get him mid to the second half of the season, but they're not looking like they're going to get him at the beginning of the season. That, like I said, they have got Demarcus Robinson in at wide receiver though, so there is some rings with George Kittle there as well. There's some room for hope on the receiving core. When fully healthy, the 49ers could well rank in the top 10 for passing offense and defense, and amongst the best in the league for rushing offense. Especially now they've added Brian Robinson to go alongside Christian McCaffrey, sorry. They should be stronger on the ground offensively too, but they could look to augment their run defense. Trey Brown has replaced Ward at cornerback, but they have not replaced the other four free agent departures. So inside linebacker, safety guard, and defensive tackle needed to be looked at in the draft. Michael Williams at edge was the first round pick. Alfred Collins and CJ West may sort out the defensive tackle need, and Nick Martin does likewise at inside linebacker. But safety and guards were pieces of work left undone. They probably have the best overall all-round roster in this division when they get fully healthy. And if they do, they can certainly take a tilt at a last-to-first run in this division. So to sum up this division, as I say, it looks wide open. The Rams do not look likely to improve on last season for me. The Seahawks look weaker. I like what the Cardinals have done in free agency, but now it's over to Kyler Murray. Go prove it. And if the 49ers can get Ayuk and McCaffrey healthy on a consistent basis, and Ricky Pearsall takes a step up to replace Deebo Samuel, they could well be the team to beat in this division. So 3 teams definitely have a shot at this division, and you could make an outside argument for the Seahawks, but not for me personally. Whoever makes it out of this division into the postseason could be a dangerous spoiler, but for me, there's not a Super Bowl contender in this division as their rosters stand right now. And like I say, the Rams and 49ers will have to make in-season additions. And for the Cardinals, they need Kyler Murray to be outstanding and to play like a number 1 overall pick rather than just a pretty good quarterback. So I don't see the Seahawks in that light, though. So that's how I see this division. Going to be very tightly contested. The games within division could be crucial here. So bear that in mind when you're looking at how the division progresses. But for now, I would probably say the Rams, given that Brandon Ayuk's going to probably miss the first half of the season, the Rams are a tiny favourite to win the division, just ahead of the 49ers and the Cardinals, with the Seahawks potentially maybe only getting 6 or 7 wins as they lose out in this ultra competitive division. So that's that division done. There's 3 more to come, and I'll be back with the next one very soon.